Well, just to discuss this further, we're joined in studio by General Secretary of United Transport and Allied Trade Unions, Steve Harris. On the phone line, we'll be joined by Metrorail spokesperson for Cape Town, Ms. Rihanna Scott. A very good evening to you both, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening to listeners.
Let me just start with you. I mean, they've got a temporary permit now to operate. If you can just elaborate for us maybe how long that permit will be, and what do you think they need to do to actually get a more permanent permit?
My understanding, the permit is for 31 days till the end of August, and obviously they'll have to now ensure that those permutations that they have not complied with, they need to comply as soon as possible, and then start upgrading and ensure that they consistently comply. And if they don't, well, obviously they're going to have problems, and it's going to affect millions of commuters at the end of the day.
Quite a lot of people actually use the train service. Can you give us a figure of perhaps how many people?
I think the majority of the users are situated in the Cape area, and your poorest of the poor are dependent on that cheapest mode of transport, and they have no other way of getting to work. You know, transport overall in the country is not the best. Cannot be competed with overseas, so you know they depend on the actual PRASA transport system.
Well, let me go over to Rihanna. Rihanna, good evening to you. Thank you for joining us. In terms of the damage that's been caused by the recent spate of arson attacks on the trains and different elements of the railway systems, what exactly has the cost been to Metrorail?
Well, we very quickly did a calculation. It's obviously very difficult to confirm that. PRASA's loss adjusters would give you the exact figure, but since May 2015, our estimate is that it's been close to 300 million.
That's quite a lot, and I mean, granted that PRASA now has a temporary permit with which to operate for the next 31 days or so. In terms of safety, what does Metrorail want to see changing from PRASA's end?
Well, I can only speak for the Western Cape, where we've had quite a lot of problems, as Steve would know. Since March, we've managed to appoint additional armed guards, armoured vehicles, drone surveillance, and a package of interventions, but most importantly that we now have forensic capability, which paid off almost immediately because we've, for the first time ever, had a conviction for cable thieves. 15-year sentence, and shortly thereafter another 3 convictions. So that package has very definitely assisted us in our first nemesis, which was cable theft and vandalism. For the arson attacks, it's something entirely different, and another package of interventions must be discussed. Hence, the Minister of Transport visited the region last Friday and discussed with the task team how to go about it. For us in the Western Cape, it's very encouraging to see that it's now been elevated to the highest level possible, and we're very confident after the arrest on Tuesday that we will be able to get more arrests and find out who's behind these fires.
Well, Rihanna, please do stay with me on the phone line. Let me just come back to studio. Who do you think should be held to account for some of these attacks? I mean, Rihanna mentioned cable theft, where for the first time they were able to get a conviction due to better surveillance equipment that they've been able to install. But for things like the arson and other attacks, who should be held accountable?
Well, we've called on the Minister of Police to put a specialised investigation team together to find the culprits as far as the arson attacks are concerned, because it's clear that there is someone sitting behind this, and it's affecting the actual commuters at the end of the day. Our latest figures that we have is that there's about 38 sets left out of the 88 to run a normal system, and you can imagine that if our figures are correct, how overcrowded those systems are, the coaches are that are currently running.
You're running practically at less than 50% capacity.
Exactly, and the more you burn, the less available you're going to have. And it's not a question like a motor vehicle where you go to a sales company and you buy a Ford or a product from the floor. These have to be rebuilt, and because the new train sets cannot run on the current systems.
And in terms of the grievances coming from some of the workers that are represented by the unions that you speak for, what are the grievances of perhaps even the commuters, the drivers, the people that work in the system?
From the driver's side is the fear, and also your conductors. It's the fear of being caught up in that fire, your fear of being attacked, specifically if you're broken down in the middle of nowhere, and it takes time for reaction groups to get there. But we've been fortunate that with the implementation of the recent events in Cape Town, we haven't had any of those attacks. It's only the arson attacks that are now taking place. But in the KwaZulu-Natal area, we've had some serious attacks again where our train drivers had been held at gunpoint.
Now, Rihanna mentioned that the minister actually had to come down and visit the area and actually have a look. And I think that from that, 100 officers have been promised by the City of Cape Town, 60 commuter safety security guards, 14 infrastructure staff, and from PRASA side, about 1,550 additional members of the PRASA staff force. Do those figures actually bring comfort to you? Do you think that they might make a difference?
Well, you know, at the end of the day, the figures is not the issue. It's how well trained are they to be able to perform those duties, and obviously the support systems behind it. And that's the most important that counts at the end of the day. And we'll have to test it once it's implemented.
Yes.
You know, the numbers is required, but the training is the biggest factor as well.
Oriana, just to you, just to close off the discussion, I mean, what is the way forward and what do you look forward to seeing as Metro Rail Western Cape?
Well, the announcement from the city was that this unit is now established or been approved, so we will work with them to give effect to it. It's something that we've been looking forward to, and it's been under discussion for a while, and it's one step forward into professionalising PRASA's security contingent, which was one of the goals that we'd like to see. Yeah, and we look forward to implementing that as soon as possible, because I think our commuters will definitely benefit from it. The task team will look very specifically at vandalism and cable theft, but most importantly also after commuter safety.
And
Steve, what do you look forward to? I mean, you've mentioned training and that numbers actually count. What else should be done?
Well, obviously, you know, the more culprits we can apprehend, the more safer the employees will feel. And obviously the commuters will feel safer, and the more reliable the system can be at the end of the day, and that we can deliver a service that is dependable at the end of the day.
Well, thank you very much to our panelists for joining us here in studio and on the phone line. And to our viewers, if you want to give us your thoughts, your comments, you know, give your contribution to the conversation, you can do so. Our Twitter handle is @AfroWorldView.